So what happens when the President of the United States decides to rename one of the world's most critical waterways after himself? Let me tell you, this isn't just about ego. It's a really calculated move, and it's sending shockwaves through the global order, forcing America's closest allies to start questioning, well, everything.
On April 13th, 2026, this wasn't some kind of off-the-cuff remark. This was a deliberate, calculated statement. The whole point was to signal a brand new era of American control over this major choke point for the world's energy supply. But that assertion of dominance came with a pretty chilling message for America's partners.
And there it is. Without one line, the huge contradiction at the heart of this new policy is just laid bare. So on one hand, America is asserting total control, but on the other, the message to the allies who absolutely depend on that waterway was crystal clear: you're on your own. This has kicked off a massive crisis of confidence, so let's really unpack what that means.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What did this Strait of Trump policy actually involve? Because, the rhetoric was almost immediately followed by action, and it turned what could have been a war of words into a major international incident.
The administration laid out its new rules very, very clearly. First, a naval blockade targeting Iran was put into place. Second, that name, the Strait of Trump, started getting used in official communications. And then came the really big one, the demand that allied nations had to start paying for the security the U.S. Navy had provided for decades. It was basically monetizing the American security guarantee.
Right away, these actions created this massive paradox. The U.S. was suddenly trying to pull off two missions that are completely at odds with each other, especially in a waterway that's only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. It just doesn't work.
We have to be really clear about the tool being used here. A naval blockade isn't like a simple sanction. Under international law, it's considered an act of war. It's a huge move that the U.S. is making unilaterally, without a formal declaration of war or any kind of authorization from Congress or the UN Security Council.
And this is the core contradiction, right here. You just can't be the guarantor of freedom of navigation for everyone, while at the same time running a blockade that means you have to stop, board, and turn ships around. For the entire global shipping industry, this move created instant chaos and a ton of risk.
So this brings us right to the heart of the matter. While the U.S. was kind of wrestling with its own conflicting mission, its allies were suddenly plunged into a crisis. They were forced to question the very foundation of their relationship with America.
For key American allies, this isn't some theoretical debate. For nations like South Korea and Japan, this is an existential threat. We're talking about South Korea getting up to 75% of its crude oil through this one little strait. For Japan, it's up to 65%. Their entire economies are completely dependent on it. And it's not just them. Europe's worried about its natural gas imports, and the Gulf states are watching the bedrock of their stability suddenly start to crack.
The backlash was immediate. From Japan, the message was deep concern about American reliability. In South Korea, their own parliament started openly questioning the cost-benefit of the entire U.S. alliance. European leaders were totally alarmed by the unilateral America First framing of it all. Almost overnight, the trust that had held these decades-old partnerships together just began to fray.
And this is the fundamental shift. For over 75 years, that American security guarantee was treated like a global public good, almost like a lighthouse, guiding the world economy. Well, now it's a transactional toll booth. Protection is no longer a given, it's a service that can be bought, sold, or maybe even withdrawn on a whim.
All of this forces us to kind of zoom out and think about the larger historical shift that this Strait of Trump moment really represents. This isn't just a change in tactics, it's a fundamental change in the entire character of American power on the world stage. Think about it. Since the end of World War II, the U.S. has underwritten the security of the global commons. It was a core bipartisan principle. This action in 2026 completely shatters that 75-year consensus. All of a sudden, global security isn't dependent on institutions anymore, but on the personal whim of a single leader.
And this is the perception in allied capitals around the world. The U.S. has shifted from being a reliable partner to, a transactional vendor. From providing a public good to operating something that feels more like a protection racket. That perception alone is doing incredible damage, forcing our allies to rethink their entire strategic calculus.
And that's the ultimate consequence, isn't it? When your primary security partner suddenly becomes unreliable, you really don't have a choice but to make other plans. And that means allies start investing more in their own defense, they start seeking out other partners, and slowly but surely, the very alliance system that makes American power so effective begins to erode.
Which leaves us with this final, critical question. Is this move in the Strait of Hormuz a bold, necessary reassertion of American strength in a chaotic world? Or is it an act that, in the long run, will dismantle the very network of alliances that has been the foundation of that strength for nearly a century? It's a question the entire world is asking right now.